Hello, a guten Erev Shabbos. We're living through such dark and challenging times. And even as we get ready to celebrate a beautiful Shabbos full of love and light, we remember and we think and we know that there are millions of people and hundreds of thousands of Jews in harm's way or living in shelters who have lost everything in their life, if not their lives itself. But today's Rosh Chodesh Adar. Rosh Chodesh is a time of tremendous joy and hope. Rosh Chodesh is the moon beginning to appear again after it seems like it's vanished. And so is our hope for all these people. And we know that with joy we break every boundary. So l'chaim, first of all, to all of us, that Hashem should give us a beautiful Shabbos full of peace, full of love, full of light, full of hope. L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Melech haolam sha'atin v'dvarim. In this week's Torah portion, we read the story of the tabernacle being erected and ready to be used. But then at the end, the Torah tells us how the Jews traveled in the desert, that when the cloud would move, the Jews would go and follow the cloud. And when the cloud would rest, the Jews would follow and rest after the cloud. And the question asked by the rabbis is, we don't understand. There's a whole part in Numbers which speaks about when the Jews, how they traveled. Why do we have to speak about it now when we're erecting the most beautiful tabernacle? Why do you have to tell us how they traveled in the desert by the cloud? And the answer the rabbis give us is a very powerful one. That not when times are good and when times are sturdy and beautiful is not when you see who we are. But when the clouds are there and we're running and we're moving, that's when you have to find God. That's when you have to find strength to help others, to be there for other people. What a powerful message at this most vulnerable time. And just over the last week, I've seen so many moving and powerful stories that have gone on, literally life-saving and life-changing, from my dear friend, the Chabad Rabbi Aaron Shrai, who is in Zaporozhye. I can't even pronounce the name. And he's a tall guy, he's 6'2", he has an orange beard, lighter than mine, and he was trying to get out of the border after he helped all the people from his community to leave. And suddenly, Ukrainian soldiers wanted to shoot him, and they ran towards him. They thought he was a Chechen rebel. And he had to, till he finally showed them his passport that he's Ukrainian, and they took him in to search him and to question him till they let him go. And he literally saw his life in front of his eyes. He has little children. And yet, he stayed through the beginning of the war to make sure that the people from his community were able to get out. I think about the story that I've shared on my text that some of you have seen from Nathan Sharansky, one of the most powerful Jews, a Jew who was a prisoner of Zion in Russia and knows this all too well. And he says the story how when he was growing up in Russia, on your passport it said Ukrainian, it said Russian, it said Georgian, it said Kozakian. It didn't make much of a difference what it said, right? It was all part of the former Soviet Union. But then he says, some of your passports said Jewish. And if you wanted to get into university, or if you ever had an opportunity, you tried to get Jewish off your passport. You didn't want people to know that you were Jewish. Because although it didn't make a difference if you were Ukrainian or Russian or Georgian, it made a big difference if you were Jewish, and your chances of getting into university were much less. And people tried to get it off at the first opportunity. But he says, think what's going on now at the border. People at the border of Ukraine trying to get out of Ukraine. And they wish it says Jewish on their passport. Because if it says Jewish on their passport, they know there's someone waiting for them on the other side. This Chabad rabbis, this community, this Israel waiting to take them and schlep them and give them a home. Of course, we're trying to help all, but we have to look after our own first. He said, think about this time. So only 20 or 30 years after people were trying to get Jewish off their passport, they wanted to be on. Micha Amcha Ki Yisrael. Who is like your nation, O Israel? Yesterday, Gruni and I in the Chabad Chestnut Hill community had the honor to help a rabbi, Klittenstein, in Chernivtsi, Ukraine, who stayed throughout the beginning of the war to get his community out and try to help people. And yesterday, I shared the image online. It was so painful. You see him and his wife and his 5 kids. They let their children choose one thing they could take. if it was a doll, if it was something, you see his little children clutching it, and him and his wife and 5 children crossed the border into Romania, and we helped and we bought them tickets from Romania to Israel, where they are now in Israel, thank God. And many, many other heroic efforts that people in our community have done. Who is like your people, O Israel? In the time of darkness, we see when the clouds are hovering, we see what we follow and who we go after. Al pi Hashem yitzu, al pi Hashem yachanu. Even when the clouds go, we follow to do good. We know that God is with us. You know, in just a little while, 5:20 is Shabbos candle lighting right here. Courtney will light 10 candles for our children and 2 candles for her and I. And then our children will light too. But my cousin, who's the Chabad rabbi in Cyprus, in Athens, Greece, my first cousin, he wrote the most moving message and I need to share it with you. His sister Chani is the Rebbitzin, one of the Rebbitzins in Kharkov, Ukraine. She has many children. Her youngest is 2 weeks old. And thank God, miraculously, they got out of Kharkov 2 days ago and got to the Dnepropetrovsk, which is still in Ukraine, but is more stable now. But now they have to start making their journey from Dnepropetrovsk to get across the border. And although Chani's a Rebbitzin like Courtney, and her husband's a rabbi like me, and they're Shabbos observant, in order to observe Shabbos, they have to travel on Shabbos to save their lives and the lives of their families. But as he writes in his post about his sister, he says she will not be able to light Shabbos candles today because she'll be traveling in a convoy to get across the border. And she asks all of us that are able to light Shabbos candles for those who can. And when you light the Shabbos candles and then you close your eyes, pray for world peace. Pray for those who are in harm's way and danger, that God should usher in an era of peace, an era of tranquility, an era when it will be, they shall turn their swords into plow shields, where godliness will be pervasive and permeate the entire world, where we will be able to see love and joy and harmony. May it happen speedily nowadays. My friends, light Shabbos candles before 5:20 today. Pray for those who need it. Make a Shabbos table. Celebrate your beautiful family, the blessing of living in this beautiful country and the safety we have. Pray for those who need it. Come to Shul tomorrow to pray for those who need us to pray for them. And may God protect all of us. And may He usher in that era speedily nowadays. Shabbat Shalom.